I belonged. She turned back to her bridesmaids, tossed her head, and laughed. That's when it hit me, clear as a bell. This wasn't a mistake. Wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate. They'd planned it, chosen it. She didn't want me there, and Daniel had let her. They both had. And just like that, something inside me shifted. Not broke, no, not this time. Repositioned. My place in their lives had changed, and I was done pretending I didn't see it. Let 'em have their spotlight. Let 'em sip their fancy champagne. They thought I was invisible. They had no idea what I could take away. The toast started while I was still standing by that kitchen door. The lights in the reception hall had been dimmed low, and I could see the soft glow of string lights overhead and the shimmer of gold from the chargers on every table. The microphone let out a little squeal, and then her father's voice boomed through the room like he was announcing prizes on a game show. To our daughter Emily and her perfect new husband, Daniel. Cheers went up like fireworks. I took a step back, the kitchen behind me a whirlwind of clattering metal trays and raised voices, some server fussing about table 12's gluten-free dish. I moved to the side, leaned against the wall, the plaster cold against my back, the smell of garlic and hot oil thick in the air. From the other side of that door, her father kept going. When Emily was just a little girl, she told us she wanted a fairy tale, a prince, a castle, and a happy ending. Well, sweetheart, today you got it. More applause. My breath caught in my throat. He was never around when Daniel was little. Never saw me mopping up sick off the bathroom floor at 3 in the morning. Never watched me sew buttons back onto his school uniform. Never drove miles on icy roads just to take him to a chess tournament. But today, they were rewriting the whole darn story, and I'd been completely erased. I looked down at my hands again, my fingers all blotchy, the skin thin and trembling, just a bit. That cold air vent above made goosebumps rise on my arms. Then it was Emily's mother's turn. Her voice was sweet as molasses, but you could tell it was all rehearsed. We're just so grateful to be joined today by so many people who love Emily and Daniel, and to welcome Daniel into our family. He's like a second son to us already. Another cheer. Like a second son. Not a word about me. Not a single word about the woman who raised him. No, thank you for everything, Margaret. No, we appreciate your generosity. No, this day wouldn't be possible without her. Nothing. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. My feet were killing me, but I refused to sit. Then came the part I'd been dreading. The groom's speech. Daniel stepped up to that microphone, looking radiant. Strong jaw, confident stance, that tailored suit I'd helped pay for. I'd seen him take his very first breath in a NICU, and now he stood there, glowing, a perfect stranger. I just want to thank everyone for being here, he said, his voice deeper than I remembered, smooth as silk, like he'd practiced it 100 times in front of a mirror. I feel so lucky, Emily. You've made me the happiest man alive. And to your family, thank you for welcoming me like your own. I truly feel at home with you all. My throat tightened up. And to everyone who helped make today happen, thank you. This has been the most incredible day of our lives. My name never crossed his lips. Not once. I'd paid for the venue, the cat Erin, the photographer, the DJ, the linens, that ridiculous neon sign. I even paid for the dress Emily was wearing, as she stood there with her hand on his arm. And yet, I was invisible. The servers clapped, but I didn't move. The band started up again, the dance floor began to fill. Someone brought me a slice of cake on a flimsy plastic plate. I just stared at it. Vanilla with raspberry filling. Her favorite. I don't even like raspberry. Never have. I looked at that thin gold fork they gave me. My hand was steady now. I remembered when Daniel turned 10 and asked for chocolate cake with sprinkles. I worked 2 extra shifts just to buy that one from the bakery he'd pointed to in the window. His eyes lit up when he saw it. He hugged me so tight that day. That boy was gone. In his place stood a man who couldn't even remember to save me a chair. I set that cake aside. Waited till the last crumb of dessert was gone, till folks were getting up, loosening their ties, wiping icing from their mouths, till that music hit just the right peak. Then I walked right out of that kitchen, straight past the servers, straight past the bar, out that side door. The air outside was cool and still, the kind of quiet that hums in your ears. I took out my phone, 3 quick calls. One to the florist, one to the band, one to the bar manager. Polite, direct, no need for explanations. By the time I walked back into that hotel, the wheels were already turning. Tomorrow's brunch cancelled. Late night music cut. Second bartender and fancy cocktail menu, gone. I'd kept quiet long enough. Let him enjoy what was left. Let him feel that gap, that absence. Let him ask questions. I didn't care if they called me dramatic, petty, ungrateful. They'd already erased me from their story. All I did was turn the page. The hotel room smelled like rose lotion and something faintly metallic. Maybe the stress. Maybe just my skin. I sat cross-legged on that hotel bed, the comforter still smooth and untouched beneath me from when I'd checked in 2 nights prior. Not a single tear had fallen, but something inside me had turned bone cold. Not frozen, mind you. Frozen things are brittle, they crack. I was hardening, tempering. The sun hadn't even peeked over the horizon yet. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls, 2 voice messages, a whole slew of texts. Daniel, where are you? Why is the brunch cancelled? Mom, seriously, this isn't funny. Emily, I don't understand what's going on. Are you okay? Please respond. My niece, this is so childish. I let out a quiet little laugh, just a puff of air through my nose. Childish. I opened up that Bankin app again, my fingers moving, with the practiced ease of someone who'd balanced a checkbook every Sunday for 30 years. Those charges were still sitting there, bold as brass, unauthorized. My new daughter-in-law had helped herself to my card for a pre-wedding bar hop and a spa day with her bridesmaids. I could see it all in those itemized receipts. Bottles of champagne, manicures, facial masks, brunch for 8. Nobody asked me. Nobody even told me. That trust I'd carried in my chest like a worn-out quilt, warm and familiar, felt shredded, like someone had taken scissors to it while I slept. I clicked over to my emails. 2 new ones. One from the florist. We are disappointed by the sudden cancellation, but we understand. Per our agreement, no refunds for less than our notice. Fine. The second email was from the band's manager. We were halfway through setting up when the cancellation came through. It's extremely unusual, but your message was clear. We'll leave the deposit untouched. Also fine. This wasn't about getting my money back. This was for me. For that invisible woman in the kitchen chair. For the mother erased from her own son's big day. My stomach rumbled, but the thought of food just turned it. Instead, I got up, yanked open those stiff curtains, and watched the sun bleed into the sky. Orange, then pink, then a pale yellow that made everything look kinda unreal. And then I remembered something. A little red file folder tucked away in the drawer of my dresser back home. Old paperwork. Legal things. Letters. Never could bring myself to throw it out. Felt drawn to it, like it had been whispering to me this whole time. I packed my things slow-like, took a shower, washed off that perfume and all the hard feelings, dried my hair, put on jeans and a button-down shirt that still smelled faintly of lavender. Checked out of that hotel without a word. The drive home was quiet, just the hum of the tires on the asphalt and the soft static of the radio playing the songs I didn't recognize. The kind of drive where your own thoughts start to get loud and clear. He didn't mention you. They all saw where you were sitting. Nobody did a darn thing. When I pulled into my driveway, those roses I'd planted 2 summers back were in full bloom. Didn't even stop to admire 'em. Went straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser, pulled out that red folder, and sat down on the bed. At the very bottom of the stack, underneath old insurance papers and a few photos I hadn't looked at in years, was a letter. The envelope was yellowed at the edges, postmarked from Arizona, with a date in my late husband's handwriting, the year he left. I remembered finding it weeks after he died. Couldn't open it then. Felt like pouring salt in a fresh wound, like letting him speak from beyond when I wasn't ready to listen. But now, I slid my finger under that flap. The paper was thin, his handwriting slanted and familiar. It started simple. Margaret, I know you never wanted to hear from me again, but I need to tell you something. I felt my pulse quicken, my hands trembling, just a little. I've been carrying a secret, and I can't take it to the grave. You deserve the truth. Daniel. He isn't biologically yours. I found out years ago. Emily was pregnant when we got together. I thought I could pretend he was mine, but he's not. And neither of us ever told you. I stopped reading. The room spun for just a heartbeat, then settled. I read the rest, apologies, excuses, regrets. Words that meant nothing now. Daniel, my Danny, was the product of some affair, another woman's child, left on my doorstep like some test I didn't even know I was talking. And Lord have mercy, I passed. Past every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every night shift I pulled to buy him sneakers and school pictures. Past with flying colors. And yet, here I was, discarded, replaced, erased. But now I had a new kind of clarity, a truth sharp enough to cut through years of silence. And I was done bleeding. Didn't cry, not even as I sat there with that letter shaken in my lap, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd ever held. Not a single tear. What would be the point? Tears had built Daniel's childhood. Tears paid for his shoes, his asthma medicine, his first car. They soaked my pillow after his father left, and again when he walked across that high school stage, not once tanning to wave at me in the crowd. I'd run out of tears years ago. What I had now was something else. Not grief, not heartbreak, clarity. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Black. Strong. Strong. I sat by the window and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick, tick, tick across the green lawn. It was just a regular Sunday morning, but I wasn't the same woman who'd footed the bill for someone else's dream and gotten a folding chair behind the punch bowl as her reward. Nope, I wasn't the woman who'd swallow this down, not this time. I picked up my phone and started with the florist. My voice was steady, polite. Thanked them for their understanding. Confirmed again that Sunday's flowers wouldn't be needed. Didn't offer an explanation. Didn't owe him one. Next was the band. Same tone, same silence about the reason. Then the bar service. Hi, this is Margaret Langley. Yes, that's right. I'm Callan, to cancel the cocktail reception for the post-wedding brunch. YES.NO, no issues. Just a change of heart. Thank you. Click. 3 calls. 3 clean cuts. I could have left it at that, but I didn't. 'Cause I knew what was coming. I turned off my phone, then turned it back on 5 minutes later. 38 unread messages. 3 voicemails. Daniel again. Mom, where are you? The band didn't show. What the hell is going on? Emily's mother. I don't know what's happening, but this is incredibly unprofessional. People are asking questions. Then Emily herself. Margaret, seriously? Is this because you were upset about the seating? That's just petty. We had a vision. Don't ruin this. Petty. The word echoed in my head like a nasty name, like a Brandon iron. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I could see was her smirking across that reception hall, knowing where I was, knowing what she'd done, knowing I wouldn't fight back. Until now. I turned off that phone again. Let em spin. Let those questions pile up. Let him realize the bar ran dry, 'cause I was the well. That the music stopped, 'cause I paid the final note. That the flowers never showed, 'cause the roots were rotten. I cleaned up the kitchen, wiped down the counters, fed the cat. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer. Let 'em knock. Let 'em stew in the heat of their own discomfort. Later that night, I posted one single photo on Facebook. Not of the wedding. Not of me. Just a picture of that check I'd written, blurred out the account number, left my signature plain as day. No caption, no explanation. Just that. A truth they couldn't deny. A receipt of sacrifice. And then I logged off. Not just from Facebook. From the guilt. From the silence. From pretending this wasn't a betrayal. I didn't need their explanations, their spin, their excuses. Let 'em sit in the wreckage. I wasn't gonna pull 'em out. The silence that followed was the first sign they were scrambling. No more messages, no more calls. Just this strange stretching quiet, like the eye of a storm passing right over my house. I could feel it, the tension, the waiting. They didn't know what I'd do next. Truth be told, neither did I. But whatever it was gonna be mine. Monday morning, I brewed myself a pot of coffee and sat by the window again. No makeup, no earrings. Just me and the day and the hum of the fridge in the background. Daniel hadn't called since yesterday. That last voicemail had been short, stiff, defensive. You really made a scene, Mom. Everyone's talking. You embarrassed us. I don't know what you were trying to prove, but you crossed a line. Didn't even flinch when I heard it. 'Cause here's the honest-to-goodness truth nobody likes to say out loud. You can give your whole darn self to someone, your time, your money, your love, and still be nothing but disposable. You can build their entire world and still be told you don't fit the picture. That betrayal didn't even raise an eyebrow anymore. What surprised me was how little I cared now that I'd finally stopped begging for their stamp of approval. That morning, I deleted his contact from my phone. Just the name. The number stayed. Didn't need to forget him, just didn't want his name flashing on my screen like it still belonged there. Around noon, I went out. Grocery store, post office, little errands. Life just kept on trucking. And in the bakery aisle of all places, I saw Diane, my cousin who'd flown in for the wedding. She smiled when she spotted me, but there was a kind of hesitancy behind it. Margaret. Hey. I just nodded. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. Are you okay? I met her eyes. Were you okay? Watching me sit back there. She flushed something awful. I didn't realize that was on purpose. I thought maybe you. No, I cut in gentle-like. You didn't think. There was a long silence. I'm sorry, she said finally. It was wrong. I should have said something. I nodded once. Thank you. She looked relieved, like that little bit of honesty had set her free. Didn't do much for me, but it was a start. When I got home, there was a bouquet sitting on my porch. Carnations. The cheap kind, already looking a little droopy. No card. Didn't even bring 'em inside. Walked 'em straight to the trash can. Later that evening, I checked Facebook. That photo of the check had almost 100 comments. Old friends, colleagues, neighbors, folks I hadn't heard from in years. Some were confused, some were downright mad, but most understood. One comment stood out. This broke my heart, Margaret. And I've never related to something so deeply. Thank you for showing us we don't have to stay quiet. That was it. The start of something new. Not revenge, not spite, power reclaimed. Let 'em fume in their group chats. Let 'em spin their own tall tales. I wasn't replying, wasn't explaining. I was finally choosing silence, not as giving in, but as taking control. And that silence this time was all mine. It started with the drawer, a creaky old thing in the guest room dresser, always sticking, always needing a little hip bump to open. Wasn't even looking for anything special, Just clearing out the odds and ends of a life I'd been too worn out to sort through. But somewhere between the yellowing tax returns and expired coupons, I found it. That red folder again. The same one I thought I'd already emptied. But tucked into the sleeve, so thin it could have been part of the linen, was a second letter. No envelope this time, just folded once, then again. Handwritten. Same slanted scroll. Same name. My ex-husband's signature stared up at me like a ghost. Michael. It was dated 3 days before he died. Margaret, if you're reading this, I guess the first letter reached you. I don't know if you opened it. I hope you did. I won't waste time apologizing again. I need to tell you something more. Something I couldn't carry with me. Something I should have said a long time ago. Daniel wasn't just someone else's son. He was never supposed to be yours at all. When Emily left him at my door, she didn't want to keep him. She was 18, terrified. She asked me to give him up for adoption. I couldn't. Didn't have the heart. I lied to you. Told you he was ours, that it was a mistake from before we got married. You believed me. You raised him. You loved him like he was flesh of your flesh. But the truth is, he wasn't even that. He was a stranger's child. And you made him your world anyway. I don't know how you'll feel reading this, but I hope you know that whatever else I did wrong, I was right about choosing you. You were the only person strong enough to be his mother. Not because of blood, but because of who you are. I didn't move. Those words sat on my chest like a ton of bricks. Not biologically mine. Not even accidentally mine. Chosen by a man who'd walked out on both of us, who'd given me a child and then just left, like it was some kind of favor. My breath hitched for the first time in days. My knees went weak, and I sank down onto the edge of the bed, that paper still clutched in my hand. 1,000 memories flashed through my mind. The first time I rocked Daniel to sleep, his tiny fists curled against my shoulder. His first word, truck. The fever that scared me so bad I drove to the emergency room barefoot in the dead of winter. That science fair project he stayed up crying over when the volcano wouldn't erupt. His first real heartbreak. His laugh when he found out he'd gotten into college. Every moment I thought was ours. I had built my whole life around that boy. Shaped my very identity around being his mother. And now I had to face something no woman should ever have to. He never truly saw me that way. He loved what I gave, not who I was. Not really. If he had, he never would have let her put me in that kitchen. He never would have stayed silent. He never would have let them erase me. I laid that letter on the bed, smoothed it out with my palm. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like freedom. For 62 years, I'd lived a version of myself that only existed to serve others. Wife, mother, provider, ghost. But now, with that truth staring up at me in ink faded with age, I saw something new. I had power. Didn't even dawn on me, 'cause I loved someone completely who was never truly mine, and I never let that stop me. 'Cause I chose to stay when others ran. 'Cause I made a family even when it wasn't written in blood. And I could choose again. Startin' right then. I left that letter open on the kitchen table, didn't hide it, didn't lock it away. Just let it sit there, plain as day, like a truth I didn't need to shield myself from anymore. I moved through the house like I was seeing it for the very first time. Those beige walls, the faded photos of Daniel's high school graduation, that dent in the doorframe from when he crashed his bike trying to ride inside. Used to smile at that dent. Now I just stared. That house was a museum of sacrifices, of all the ways I'd erased myself to keep him whole. That worn-out armchair I nursed him in. The sewing kit I used to hem his pants. The pantry still stocked with his favorite cereal, Honey Bunches of Oats, even though I stopped leaking it years ago. It hit me all at once. I didn't know what my favorite cereal was. Didn't know the last book I'd read that wasn't a parenting guide or something from the hospital's required reading list. Couldn't even remember the last time I spent money on something, just for me. I'd lived so long being his mother, I'd plumb forgot how to be a woman, a person. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch. The silence in the house had changed. Didn't feel lonely. Felt honest. My phone buzzed on the side table. Daniel again. A long message this time. A different tone. I don't know what happened. I've been thinking about everything. Emily said she didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry if you felt excluded. If I felt. Not because you excluded me. Not because you left me behind. If I felt. It was still about his perception, his comfort, his distance from blame. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. The hum of a cooking show filled the room, calm and steady. My eyes drifted to that letter again. He wasn't mine. Not by blood, not by law. But I had been his, until he made it crystal clear I was no longer part of the family he was building. The ache inside me wasn't for him anymore. It was for the version of myself I'd abandoned to raise someone who never once turned around to ask, "Are you okay, Mom?" All those years, all those birthdays I made special, all those Christmas mornings I stayed up past midnight wrapping dollar store gifts in perfect bows, all those "you go sit, I'll do the dishes" kind of days I never had, 'cause nobody ever offered. I had been his background music, his safety net, his reliable silence. But no more. That evening, I took every framed photo of us off the wall. Not out of anger, not out of spite. 'Cause it was time to stop living in a shrine to a version of motherhood that demanded I disappear. I boxed 'em up gentle-like, wrapped the glass in old towels, labeled the box memories, not obligations. I cooked dinner just for me. A recipe I saw once on a travel show. Lemon butter pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes and garlic. No chicken nuggets, no side of mac and cheese. Just what I wanted. I lit a candle while I ate, played soft jazz, set the table for one. It was quiet, but not empty. It was the sound of reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd lost, myself. The invitation list started with silence. No glitter pens, no gold foil. Just a lined yellow notepad and the scratch of my pen across it. I wrote the names down one by one. Not people I had to invite. People I wanted to. Claire, my old friend from the ER who used to sneak coffee into my locker when I worked doubles. Mr. Henderson, my next-door neighbor who always snowblowed my driveway before I could even get out there. Dina from the bookstore I visit every Sunday, who always asks about my week and actually listens. Nurse Janet, who once stayed late on her own birthday to help me cover a shift. Not a single one shared my blood, but every single one had made me feel seen in a way my own son never had. And that was the new theme. People who saw me. It wasn't a wedding, wasn't a holiday, just a dinner at my house, with my food at my table. No folding chairs, no back kitchens. I spent the next few days getting everything ready. Not because I had to impress anyone, but 'cause I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't preparing something for someone else's story. This wasn't about Daniel, wasn't about getting even, wasn't about proving a darn thing. It was about making room for joy. For me. I went to the market and picked out the ingredients myself. Fresh basil, garlic, heirloom tomatoes. Not a single frozen appetizer tray in sight. I even splurged on a new tablecloth, blue with sunflowers. Reminded me of something I would have liked when I was 20, before all the shoulds started piling up like bricks around my life. On the morning of the dinner, I woke up early and played music while I cooked. Van Morrison, Stevie Nicks, Norah Jones. My house smelled like garlic and olive oil and lemon zest, like warmth, like effort, like home. The first guest arrived just before 6. Claire, with a bottle of red and a smile as wide as the Texas sky. "You look amazing, Maggie." And you know what? I did. Hair soft gray at the temples but loose and full of life. A linen blouse that felt cool against my skin. No Spanx, no mascara tears waiting to happen. Just me. They trickled in after that. 6 guests, laughter at the door, Hugs that lingered just a little longer than polite, wine being poured without even a skin. We ate at that old table I once used for folding laundry and helping Daniel with his math homework. Now it was full of passin' plates, clinkin' forks, napkins dabbed in mouths mid-laugh. And Lord, I laughed too. Really laughed. Someone brought up awful first dates. Someone else confessed to stealing a pen from the bank every week out of pure spite. And somewhere between dessert and second helpings, it hit me. This was family. Not assigned by blood, but chosen, intentionally, authentically. I didn't feel forgotten. Didn't feel managed. Didn't feel small. I felt present. Toward the end of the evening, as we sat under the string lights I'd strung across the back porch, Claire raised her glass. To Margaret, she said, her voice warm and true. For being the kind of woman who reminds us that it's never too late to take your seat at the head of your own table. Hear, hear. Everyone chimed in, clinking their glasses. I laughed soft-like, and every word was true when I raised my own glass and said, to finally being seen. The knock came just after noon. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, like he knew I was home and wasn't fixin' to leave till I opened that door. I stood in the hallway barefoot, watching his shadow through the frosted glass. Daniel. It had been a week since that wedding. 7 days of silence from me, 7 days of unraveling for him. I opened the door slow. He looked the same, but not really. The fancy suit was gone, so was that glow. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes. His mouth tightened when he saw me, like he'd practiced 10 different ways to start this conversation and clean forgot 'em all. Hi, Mom. I didn't say it back. Just stepped aside, let him in. He hesitated, then walked past me. The house was clean, quiet. Sunlight streamed across the living room floor. On the mantel, the photos were gone. Every last one of him. He noticed. His eyes flicked to those empty spaces. Where are the pictures? I ignored the question. Sit down, I said, calm and flat. He obeyed, sinking into the armchair across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he sighed, ran a hand through his hair. I didn't come here to fight. I nodded. Good. He just shook his head. I don't understand what happened. 1 minute everything was fine, and the next, you're cancelling things, posting checks on Facebook. That stung. He didn't ask how I felt. Didn't say, I'm sorry. He wanted an explanation. I stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a box. Set it down gentle-like on the coffee table between us. What's this? He asked. Receipts. Receipts, I said. Every single one of them from the last 12 months. Venue deposits, dress fittings, caterer down payments. I even covered that fancy dance floor you just had to have. Remember that. His eyes scanned those papers but didn't touch them. Then I pulled out the next thing. The letter. His father's handwriting, plain as day. I didn't say a word while he read. Just watched his face. First came the confusion, then recognition, then that slow, creepin' look of disbelief. He looked up, his voice cracking. You knew. I do now, I said. He swallowed hard. So you're angry because you're not. I'm not angry because you're not my biological son, Daniel, I said, cutting him off. I'm angry because I raised you. I gave you everything I had. And when the moment came for you to honor me, to stand up and say, this woman made me, you sat down. He looked down, silent. You let them push me into that kitchen, I continued, my voice not even trembling. You watched them humiliate me, and you said nothing. That's what broke me. Not your DNA. Not the money. He finally spoke, barely above a whisper. I didn't think it would matter. Emily said. She said it would be better for the pictures, for the look. I didn't think you'd be hurt. I let out a short, cold laugh. You didn't think. Exactly. I stood up, walked over to the mantel, and held up one of those empty frames. This used to hold a photo of your kindergarten graduation. You had a missing tooth and marker all over your shirt. You ran right off that stage and into my arms. I placed it face down. I'm done holding on to versions of you that no longer exist. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Mom. No, I said firmly. I'm not your backdrop anymore. I'm not your bank. I'm not your afterthought. He looked down at the floor, his jaw tight. He nodded slow-like. I'm sorry, he whispered. Too little, too late. I picked up that box, closed the lid, and handed it to him. These are yours now. Take them. Every receipt, every record, every reminder of what you chose to overlook. He hesitated, then took the box, and I walked him to the door. He paused right there at the threshold, looked back at me like he was searching for a crack, a softness, a sign that the door might just open again later. But it wouldn't. You always said I was your whole world, he said quiet-like. You were, I replied. And now, I'm finally mine. Then I closed that door. The house was warm with laughter. Real laughter. The kind that fills your chest and makes your eyes crinkle without you even noticing. The kind that echoes through the walls and reminds you you're alive. The smell of garlic and rosemary danced in the air. The table was set with care, that blue and sunflower yellow cloth, mismatched plates, cloth napkins folded into little fans. I'd put a candle in the center, not to impress anyone, just 'cause I liked the way the flame made the silverware shine. My guests were gathered in the living room, sipping wine, sharing stories. Mr. Henderson was in the corner telling a yarn about how he once locked himself out of his house in his underwear. Everyone was howling. Claire had tears running down her face from Logan's so hard. And me. I was standing right there in the kitchen, barefoot, holding a glass of wine, smiling. Not waiting to be called in, not hiding behind a door, not forgotten. I was the hostess. I was present. I was seen. I plated the last dish, roasted vegetables with thyme and sea salt, and brought it out. As I set it on the table, someone clapped. Chef Margaret strikes again, Claire said with a grin. We sat, passed the bowls, poured more wine. Somewhere between the second helping and the last bite of cornbread, Claire raised her glass again. I think we should toast, she said. Everyone nodded in agreement. To what, Dina? Claire asked, turning to me. To choosing yourself, she said, and to knowing when to stop giving to people who only know how to take. Everyone raised their glass, and I finally fully raised mine too. I stood up. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't tremble. I looked at every face around that table. People who weren't tied to me by duty or blood, but by choice, by love, by respect. And I said, to the mothers who stayed quiet for too long, to the women who gave everything, and were told it still wasn't enough, to the ones who were asked to sit in the kitchen after building the darn house. This is for us. May we never sit down again unless it's at the head of our own table. Glasses clinked, someone cheered, and I sat down. Not in the back, not out of sight, not in exile, but in my chair. My place. Daniel never called again. Didn't need him to. The people who mattered were already right there. The next morning, I woke up to birds singing and light pouring through my window. No regrets, no tightness in my chest, just peace. I made coffee, sat on the porch with my robe fluttering gentle in the breeze. I looked out at my garden, roses blooming wild and bright. I wasn't someone's backdrop anymore. I was the main character in my own life. And finally, that was enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.